Okay, so we're Milky Way Studios. We participated in the last GTA Game Jam. We made a game where we butcher anthropomorphic animals, and since then we made another game jam. That's Julian over there. We also have Morgan, Diana, Marissa, Hannah. So we're going to be talking about some game jam essentials. I know we have some beginners out here who are a little worried, and it is a little bit stressful, but it's also a lot of fun too. So we want to highlight how to plan out and make the most of this experience. So we'll be talking about the jamming timeline, the experience, what tools you use, the assets you use, the timeline. So the game engine is pretty much where you put all the assets. You plan everything. The assets are what go into the game, like the artistic elements of the game, and you have to manage all this in time. 48 hours, you can't get everything done.
So, basics of jamming is like you have a small window of time. Usually, it could be anywhere from like I don't know. This one's 48 hours. Last one we did was an entire month. It revolves around a topic or prompt that you're given at the like right before the jam starts. Usually, you're given the topic, and then you go right into it. And yes, you're making a game from scratch. It's you literally do have to start from scratch in that time period. You can't like have like some game already like made and then like do have to start the game from scratch. Yeah, you should be scared, a little scared, maybe very scared even. Be as scared as you want. And if you want to poop yourself a little bit, I won't blame you. That's natural. It's a little weird, but it's natural. So some rules.
You're going to use a whole lot of tools when building a game, especially if you're new to the experience. You might not know all of these. First, of course, we're going over some of the engines. We love to use Unity just because great for beginners, good for 2D games, which I guess we haven't made one for the last one, but our other one it's pretty powerful. It's got a lot of built-in features, good documentation, a lot of assets you can use for free, and you have a very fast build time, which is great, especially for game jams. Unreal is industry standard. Michael, do you want to talk about Unreal a little bit?
I guess I wasn't expecting this, but I mean, what an opportunity!
How long do we have?
How long do we have? No, Unreal Engine's really powerful. Honestly, I'm just gonna use the words that they put on the slide because I don't want to, oversell Unreal to the detriment of Unity. Because the truth is that both engines are incredibly powerful. Both engines are industry standard. Both engines do allow you to make graphically impressive games. Unreal's a little bit better for the graphically impressive games. I think that's a commonly accepted opinion. It natively supports more impressive graphics features that you would have to probably like acquire as packages off of the Unity store. There's great documentation for both. Unreal has like nice built-in documentation. Unity's got good documentation online. Unreal is a little easier if you have no clue what programming you're doing. You're just a designer, you want to learn the basics of programming. You can do visual scripting in Unreal. So cool tool, right? But I'm not going to say much more because people are going to, I don't want to create controversy. Both are powerful engines.
Amazing.
Thank you, Michael. Source control is going to be very useful when you're working with multiple programmers. You can manage different branches of your project and go back in history if you mess something up terribly. Unity, we will say this has very good built-in source control. I think it used to be Collaborate, now it's like Plastic now or something.
Some version control.
Just version. Yeah, but it's very good, very useful, and suited for Unity. Trello is great for organizing everything. You can just it's great for brainstorming, just throwing ideas on there, just listing ideas off, and you can also schedule deadlines with it. And we can show off the Trello we made for Calcium Crusaders, if it works here.
Maybe control clicking it. I don't know if it's like a link. Oh, huh.
We can do it later.
You can probably open it up at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, we definitely recommend Trello for planning. Some of your artistic tools like Krita, we love Krita. It's good for 2D animation. It has a lot of different brushes. It's not Adobe. That's a big plus for us, and it's free. And there's a lot of different plugins you can download for free. Pretty much everything you can do in GIMP and Photoshop. It's great. We love Krita. GIMP is a good Photoshop alternative as well. It's free. And of course there is Photoshop. I would only recommend it if you can get it for free, but it's very powerful. Not going to undersell that.
Morgan suggested that clicking the picture might have been the link, not the.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if you want
That
that.
is true. She didn't link it to the-
Okay,
Do
we
you-
can check it out later.
Oh, later. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, gotcha. Carry on.
So for some of the audio and music, Bosca CL is great. It's free. It's good for like 8-bit sounding music a lot, and it's very easy to use. FL Studio is great too. It is very pricey though, but it does have a really good free trial. I think like it'll only boot you. It won't let you save. That's what it is. Yeah, but you can use it for however long as you want. Audacity is great for sound effects. Yes.
So these audio tools, are these both sound effects and like actual backing track, soundtrack kind of stuff? Is it both categories?
Audacity, I would say probably just best for sound effects, but Bosca and FL Studio, good for music mostly. I'm sure you can make sound effects in them, but probably best for Audacity. Blender, of course, is the 3D modeler that we recommend. It's getting more beginner friendly as of late, even though it's still struggling a little bit with that. It has a bunch of different tools you can use, and we love Blender. We've been using it for Florida Man, I know. And
Yeah.
we also recommend 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, ZBrush, and Maya. I know some of us on our team has strong opinions about Maya, but that's also an option. And so we wanted to ask you, what do you think takes the most time in a game jam, or just game development in general? Any ideas?
Maybe planning, maybe.
Planning?
Yeah.
Fixing what you thought would work.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Compiling shaders, right?
Shader, yeah.
3 hours.
Did you have something, Joe? Okay.
Compiling shaders.
Oh yeah, it can be a process. For me, it's probably like 2D animation if you're dealing with that. One second.
Relevant to this part. So, assets, things that you're going to be using to actually put the game together. Just go down the list here. So, story. Story is going to be an optional one for a game jam. For the longer ones, you can very easily kind of fit a good story in there. For a shorter one, it's going to be up to the game. If you really want to make a story-based game in 48 hours, go for it. But that needs to be the central core of like your game. If the story is not integral to the game, like it's not like the gameplay, I'd say you could probably leave it out just because you want to put as much time into creating the game as possible, as much resources towards just developing the gameplay and then that itself. But if you want to have kind of like a little bit of like story going on in the background, I guess that's fine. Just don't integrate it too much into the game itself, I guess, if that's, it's based on what your game is. So sprites. If you have an artist on your team, you're going to be using a lot of sprites, a lot of 2D assets. Obviously depending on if you're making a 3D or 2D game, but sprites still, carry on to like things like UI or just like menu screens and stuff like that. Texturing kind of starts to fall into that category a little bit, but sprites. Models, if you're making a 2D game, this is relevant, but for 3D games, you want to have a good chunk of models made from like, the tools we showed, Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, ZBrush, and you want to have those implemented into your, those are going to be the things that, if you're doing a 3D game, those are going to be the things that, the objects in your scene that you're going to need to, make the game like functional and play stuff. Systems, very important. This is the game. So you want to make sure that you have if you're not a programmer, you want to find some.
Just like,
Oh, yeah. If you're not a programmer, you want to find some. There are scripts available on like I know Unity has an asset store. There's tons of scripts available online for Unreal. You can find like a blueprints that you can like kind of replicate in Unreal. You want to make sure that you have that. Otherwise, you don't really have a game. That's like number one right there. Unique features. This can be a little bit of an optional one. This should be a good priority though, because you want to make sure your game's unique. So you want to have something like I think Alex was talking about in the last GBM, like your twist, your unique feature that sets the game apart from other games. Like again, if you have like some Binding of Isaac type roguelike, and then it's just like if it's literally just like Binding of Isaac with like no other discernible feature, then you've just made the same game. It's not like it's not very unique. So you want to make sure you have some sort of unique feature if you have the time, I suppose. So like make sure your core, your base is fun, and then try and work on that. And then test it. Make sure your game works. Make sure your game works. Bugs suck. Squash them. So now I'm going to give a demo on the magic of Unity. It's a Unity jumpstart guide. If you're a complete beginner and you have no idea how to use Unity at all, this is a decent tutorial to get you started. So when you open Unity, it'll ask you first if you want to make a new project. So you just click new. This is the 3D. This is the 3D project template that comes as soon as you open it. It's the default window. It's kind of ugly. I use a different layout, but this is what it will look like when you open it. So I'm just going to explain everything on here. Up there in the top left is the hierarchy, the scene hierarchy. That is where all of the game objects in the scene go. So I just put in there's a cube serving as a sort of like round. There's a directional light that comes with the scene, and there's a camera, which is where all of the that's where the game gets viewed from. That's like what you will see when the game is being played. In the bottom left here, we have the project window, or the project bin, I guess. This is where every asset you have in the project is going to be stored here. You can create folders to separate them. This will also include all the packages that you've installed. And this is just where you keep track of like everything that needs to be here. I don't like how large the default window is. It's really ugly. This is really ugly. Over here, we have the inspector. The inspector is going to keep track of everything that is on in a game object, everything that is attached to a game object. A game object is composed of components, which are there's an arrow pointing to each component. So this cube comes with all of these. Comes with a transform component, cube mesh renderer, cube mesh filter, mesh renderer, box collider, and material. Those are all the components that come just when you literally create a cube. And I'll show you how to do that in the next slide. But that's pretty much everything that is like important in when you open the Unity window interface. So here I'm just going to create a cube, and it's as simple as that. I just right-clicked onto into the scene hierarchy, and it'll ask what you want to do. And I just said, well, create a cube, and then you can move it around with the things. And you can see that it does come pre-installed with like all those components. That's just like default how it happens. And then, so creating something to just kind of discern that cube from the other cube is we're just going to make a material and color it red. Pretty easy to do. Again, same process of making a cube. I just right-click. I said make a new material. I created a folder called materials and stored it in the assets folder. And then it is as simple as just drag and drop the material onto the cube. And if I wanted to change the color at any time, I could. And if I wanted to put that material on another game object, it would apply to all of them in the same way. The base material is what discerns the all the properties that visually reflect what the cube will look like on the exterior. So then, attaching, as far as components go, we can create and attach a rigid body. This is really important for doing physics-based work in Unity. It's all in this rigid body system that Unity has built in. And it is, again, as simple as it's a component. So you just add the component of rigid body onto the cube. That's all I'm doing is, yeah, I just typed in rigid body, tossed on the cube, and now the cube is a physics object. It's a rigid body. And then to create the actual magic, the functionality of making the cube, I don't know, do something, we just gonna put a script that was, it's just gonna be a very simple script that's just going to make the cube jump. So again, just right click, create new item. We're just gonna create a C# script and call it jump. So this is what it will look like when you open the script. This is Visual Studio. If you have a Mac, I think Visual Studio is on Mac. Can anyone?
VS Code certainly is.
VS Code's on Mac.
They have a Mac version for Visual Studio, but it like supports like different workloads. I don't know if it like supports all like the .NET stuff, but Unity.
Xcode.
Yeah.
But when you open it in an IDE,
You
it
can
will
always
look,
put the
it will look
IDE.
like that. That's just like the default stuff that'll come with it. So this is all the functionality. I'm going to explain what all of this means. So this whole script is just, it's very simple script to just make the cube jump. Going from the top down, using system.collections, using all that, those 3 lines, they just come with the script itself. I didn't add that, that's just there. Those are just to implement kind of the Unity features of C# into Unity, into our IDE.
Can't see. Oh, it's a little tiny.
Yes. it's a little tiny.
Can I zoom in?
It's
You just can't see it in the camera. You can still see the picture.
Just recommend the light.
outline will be fine, but
The lights. Uh-huh.
Fade.
Uh-huh.
improved it.
Yeah. High visibility.
So, yeah, that's what those stuff at the top does, going from line 5. If you're new to programming, everything for object-oriented programming, you keep things, keep behaviors in, I guess, yeah, behaviors and functions and scripts all compacted into things called classes. And a class is just to store like, all of the variables and things we're going to use to create functionality. The class, for all intents and purposes, is the script. Like, yeah, this script is defining the class, and in turn, the class itself is the script which can be instantiated to make like, you know, more versions or objects of this class. So that's what that means, and we're just calling it jump. And mono behavior is it's inheriting the Unity's base library, I guess, to add in the functionality of like, you know, rigid bodies and like all the Unity cool stuff that we actually want to use more of. So rigid body RB, we're just defining some variables at the top because we're going to use those later. So we can ignore those for now. So as we get to private void start, this is the private void start is called when, actually let me explain first. Private means this class is the only thing that can see that function. You cannot call this function outside of this specific class, nor its children. You can make it public, you can make it just regular, not void, whatever, but it's just for the purposes of this example, I just made it private because we're not going to be calling it another class. So it's private void. Void just means it's not returning any value. It's just going to be a function that does a behavior and then that's it. It doesn't return anything. And start is a Unity specific function that when a game object is, when the script is first called, like at the very beginning of it being in the scene, when the game starts, I guess, it will do everything in that script before it gets to anything below. So it'll do anything in that function. So right now, we're setting the rigid body equal to GameObject.getComponent rigid body. What does that mean? So RB is just the name of the variable for the rigid body. We're setting it equal to the game object that we're going to attach the script to, which is game object. Lowercase g is important. That means it's the game object that like this script is currently on, the specific game object. We're getting the component of the rigid body, which we made earlier. We put the rigid body on the game object, and we're just setting this variable equal to that rigid body so that we can call the functionalities and use it from this script. So next, we're going to go into private void update. So update is going to be where a lot of the core functionality happens. It's going to be called every single frame. This means that if your computer's running at 30 FPS, it'll be called, it'll be called 30 times every second. It's literally every frame it's going to do something. So what we're doing is we're going to say if input.getKeyDown, keycode.space, jump equals true. So at the top, we define a variable called bool jump is equal to false. And a bool is just like a true or false statement. It's a boolean. It just means this thing is either true or it is not. We're setting it equal to false at first because well, we haven't jumped. So what we're doing is we're saying if the input.getKeyDown, which is just we're going to select the key, and that key code is space. We're going to set jumped our boolean equal to true, meaning yes, we have pressed the space bar, we should be jumping now. And if we go down to fixed update, the difference here is that fixed update is going to occur on Unity's physics updates. So this is going to be different from your typical frame rate updates. I think it's locked at either 30 or 60, depending on how fast your machine is running. But it's different from update because update, if your machine's running at 144 or something, update will be called all 144 frames. Fixed update will be called 60 times consistently every second, so that the physics are all physics don't get janky. The reason we're doing it like this is because we want to get the updates called. We want updates to be like as precise as possible, Tony.
So if you were to run this in update, would the physics behave differently on different machines?
Yes. If you ran it in an update, the physics will behave differently on different machines. Another thing is that if you try to put, I actually did this when I was first creating this little demo. If you try and do like, I'll get down to this a little bit later, but if you try and do this function rb.addForce, if you try and actually make the jump happen from like input.getKeyDown, both in the fixed update, sometimes you'll press a spacebar and nothing will happen because the input for getKeyDown is updating faster than the physics can process, which is why we're doing it using a boolean. It's a little, honestly, it's a little bit messy, but it works much better this way. So yeah, that's fixed update. We're going to say if jumped. Now, we're just saying when you put a boolean and you say if the name of the boolean, you're just saying if this is true. You could put like a not at the beginning and say this is not true. Or if you want to be very specific, or there's another way to write it, we could say if jumped is equal to true, but they all mean the same thing. So if we have pressed the spacebar, if we have jumped, we're going to do a jump action. We're going to call the function jump action. Again, another programming thing is that you can define a function anywhere. You can just create a function that will have a set of, go down a list of behaviors that you want to be carried out, and you can call it from anywhere within the script, anywhere within the same class, depending on its level of clearance, I guess. So we just have void jump action at the bottom because we don't want it to return anything. We just want jump action to make the cube jump. So RB, we're going to call the rigid body that we declared earlier, and we're going to call Unity's physics function called addForce. And this is it's a very powerful function. It's a lot for us because it just adds a force to the game object, and we can define that force based on two things. It has two arguments. It will take in first the direction of the force that we want. We want to apply the force in a certain direction. And since we're making a cube jump, we're just going to have it be vector 3.up. which is it's literally just a vector that goes straight up on the y-axis. We're going to multiply it by the jump force, which is a variable we declared at the very beginning, and that's just going to be how much we want the cube to jump. Its second argument, which is optional, is to declare what type of force we want this jump to be. Force mode has, I think, four or five settings: acceleration, velocity change, impulse, and one more I can't remember right now. It's probably not important. So impulse is just going to be like, hey, take this and like literally just an instantaneous like jolt of force to this game object, send it straight up. And that's going to take care of that force. So we call that whenever jumped is equal to true. And then immediately after that, we set jumped equal to false, so that when we press the jump, it doesn't just the whole reason we have this is so that if we press spacebar, the cube doesn't just get sent into oblivion going straight upwards. This will stop it so that as soon as we hit the spacebar, jumped is equal to false, so we will no longer be applying this force every fixed update frame. Because remember, fixed update is getting called 60 times a second. It is going to keep going. If we didn't have this whole if statement here, then the cube would just keep going up because it's getting called every single frame, every second. So this whole thing is just going to make the cube jump.
Yes.
Hopefully that makes sense. Yes.
Okay, so you made the cube and the script in separate boxes on the UI. What are like you made the cube in the hierarchy, and then you made the script by like right-clicking in the project. What are the difference between those two? Why did you make the cube in one and the script in the other? What's the
So the cube is in the scene. So you want to create it in the scene hierarchy. The script itself is just it's now an asset that we just have in the project bin. You could drag the cube from the hierarchy into the project bin to create a prefab, but that's like an entirely different thing. But essentially, yes. If it's in the scene view, actually, can you go back to scene? Like I right clicked and made the cube up there because that's in the scene, and I just wanted to like be there. I made the script down here because this is now like it's a project asset, so I can kind of use it whenever I want to. Like put it, I could put it on that cube, the bottom, the ground cube. But yeah, that's pretty much the reason that I created them separate. Like you can't put a script in scene on there.
okay? So like a script is not a real thing. You put it on real things, and then the hierarchy only has things that are really in the scene that really do exist. Okay.
So the timeline for the jam, we broke this up into 4 different parts: the brainstorming part, planning, and working, and then submitting. So brainstorming is going to depend a lot on whatever the theme of the jam is. And pretty much during this, you're just going to list off as many ideas as possible. We really recommend using Trello for this part because you can just spam as many ideas as you can and then just trim the fat later. And you have to be realistic still and be open-minded. I remember for my first game jam, I really wanted to do a puzzle game, but it ended up being a paint shooter game, but it ended up being really good. So be open-minded with that. For planning, you're going to assign roles during this section, and you're going to really think about what you can reasonably do in the time frame. For this jam, we only have 48 hours, so be sure to keep that in mind. And no matter how much you plan, I don't know if it's enough it'll still be a little chaotic, especially near the end. So for working, you're going to make sure to communicate with your team, especially if you're doing it online. And if something's taking too long in the game, it's okay to just cut it. Nobody's going to look at your game expecting for perfection or wonder why this wasn't in the game. And be sure to remember basic human needs like sleep, eating, hydrating, and it's a learning experience. Game jams are the best way to learn game.
With the 48-hour game jam,
Yes.
how much are we allowed to brainstorm and plan before that 48 hours?
Beautiful question.
Oh yeah.
A work of art, really.
Like, I know it's like 48 hours, but
Mhm.
like, you're still like somewhat thinking of the concepts, right?
Yeah.
So you can,
Absolutely.
the rules are very loose. in the game jam.
Well, in this case, though, you won't have your idea until it's just important to emphasize.
So you will not have the prompt until you will not have the prompt until I guess the day of, right? Yeah, you won't have you won't have the prompt until
Literally like 6:30 p.m. roughly or
So
7
you
p.m.
can't really plan because you don't 100% know what the like.
But you
Planning
certainly
happens.
You know,
very
like have a
quickly.
general idea of what you're going to be doing, but you won't know specifically until the game jam.
you can set up some infrastructure though, and you can warp most ideas to like we're allowing you to interpret the idea however you want. So, if you're told that you have to make something related to, I keep going back to The Last of Us and Clash of Clans for some reason. But if it's like if someone gives you some ridiculous prompt like everything is tofu, I feel like you could warp that into 10 different game ideas. Everything is tofu could look like could look like Binding of Isaac. It could look like Super Mario Galaxy. Everything is tofu can be applied to a number of different things. So if you're pretty set on like some style of game or gameplay, you could probably work on that in advance, but I guess that's not the point. Like it is subtly unfair. There are infrastructure and like logistics things you can kind of do first, like setting up your Git repo, your Trello. There's a lot that you can do in advance in that regard. But
But most of the planning is going to happen during.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's good. We're allowing you to use free assets. And I mean, we can't really moderate if you use paid assets. Like so, if you the point is it's just 48 hours. You can always go buy a generic asset pack so you have a couple of trees, chairs, tables, walls, ceiling, and a floor to play with. Like, there's stuff like that. Sorry.
No, you're
it should be noted if you want to like do like some of the boring work like a settings menu or like a basic UI or something, just like have like some script or scene management or something, you can bring that in. Like if you can have it prepared beforehand, if you just want to like get like the boring stuff out of the way so you can focus on like more the gameplay related sections when you're going into the actual jam. So stuff that like can apply to any type of game, just have that ready if you want. That's like totally possible.
I think it's worth mentioning that I think during this game jam, there's actually an award for the loosest interpretation or word.
Oh, yeah,
interpretation.
we intend to. Yeah, so the way that this is, are you familiar with the nature of this game jam? I'm sorry, what's your name?
I'm Tyler.
Tyler. Nice to meet you, Tyler.
What's his name?
Well, I'm sorry. So Tyler, are you familiar with the nature of this game jam, the like telephone game jam thing?
Somewhat.
Okay. Well, the point is that other people are going to come up with your game jam idea, and you're going to be kind of randomly shuffled this idea out of a pile of ideas, and it might be something ridiculous. So we expect you to maybe interpret it really well, or maybe interpret it terribly. And I think it's going to be really funny if you choose to interpret it terribly. And we intend to reward you if you interpret it terribly. Like there's going to be a judging category for like best terrible interpretation. So yeah, like that would be pretty funny if you came up with some cleverly horrible interpretation.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but aren't the ideas due on the 22nd?
No, they're due on the 24th.
Oh, okay.
Team,
Teams are doing the 22nd. Ideas are due the
team,
24th. Right, of course.
we kindly ask that you register your team by the 22nd. I guess it's not the end of the world, but the idea is to give you a brief gap so you can meet with your team and like come up with some game ideas, because we expect every team to provide at least one game idea so that we can adequately shuffle them, kick out anything having to do with anthropomorphic animals or gore. Yeah. Yeah. But I digress. Hey, what's up? What's
I was gonna say that they can have it. Just can't have gore.
yeah, and honestly, yeah. Yes. Yeah, I'm
If they want to.
yeah. No, that was a joke.
I think it's also worth mentioning that you can use 50% of whatever assets you already have, whether that's code, art, music, sounds. You can use pre-made assets that you already have. And I think the standard is 50%. about.
How do they know how many?
It's not really.
It's not, I think that's more of like a recommendation. Like
Yeah.
if you're really trying to get a good game done really fast, you're probably gonna use a lot of asset packs. But like, yeah, I don't know.
We send the police to your.
Yeah.
He's right, yeah, we
You're-
do have UP on
Be
that.
arrested by me personally.
So when you're ready to submit, you should probably not be adding any more features at this point. You should just be focusing on polishing what you already have. And if you're using, if submission time is coming up, if you're using Unreal, you want to make sure to get a build out before time. At least a few hours before. But it's true of any game engine, but especially Unreal, because it does have some time, some long
Quirks.
build times.
Quirky shaders.
And be sure to check out all the other games that people make. Yes.
So for that submissions line, you opened up with saying, when you're ready to submit.
Mm.
Now, what if, completely hypothetically, this never happened to me before, but like completely hypothetically, what if you're not ready to submit when the deadline comes by?
There might be a grace period, I think.
I mean,
Like a
look,
hour.
and that's a rules and regulations question, I guess, which yeah, is something that's, I guess, at the discretion of administration here, but we're trying to be like really kind, you know, if like okay, I'll put it this way. There's gonna be voting probably like immediately after the jam. People realistically are gonna go to the Discord and hang out and vote. So chances are that if you don't have it done during that critical voting period, you're not gonna be acknowledged very much in your game. Like it won't be perceived by others as much. So there's direct consequences there. Like it would really, yeah, please just try to have a build earlier. Like set your deadline like an hour in advance at least, and then build 2 hours before that deadline. Like, you know, just really try to start early. I've made that mistake a handful of times myself. Yeah.
This is a picture of some guys gaming.
That frame rate. Ooh.
Gaming.
Yeah.
Oh. I've been in this game in G.
They're like adjusting the post processing on like, what is that, DaVinci or something?
Amateur was off, yeah.
Is that DaVinci?
I think so, yeah.
It's hardcore gaming.
Not yet.
Wow.
Wait.
Right,
Oh, wait.
that's right.
Right. I don't know how much time we have. Okay. We were thinking about having a mock prompt and then just brainstorming here, but I
Do
don't
you want
know
to show
if
them the
we'll
Trello
have
maybe instead
Yeah.
of doing this time? That seems like a more. Is there much left in the? Oh,
Not really, just some online resources.
Yeah, we'll just cover the online resources.
that's important. Yeah.
If you're
So, we have your online resources, Brackies. If you're doing Unity, Brackies, just Brackies. Just binge watch Brackies before the jam. Just
Yeah.
learn so much Brackies. Brackies is the reason that I can do anything in Unity.
Keyword before the jam. Because like if you are scared as a beginner, you don't want to be useless to your team. Like I mean, like a good team will be kind to you and be like, oh, you're a beginner, okay, whatever. But like just watch Brackies, watch Brackies.
Yeah, watch like how to make a character, like how to navigate enemies towards the character with Brackies. It's like a 10-minute video and it's really good. There's like a ton of tutorials on just like a bunch of random stuff. How to do like how to do attack detection with Brackies, everything, just Brackies.
If you're completely new to game dev or programming or Unity, just brackets.
We have Blender Guru. If you're doing anything 3D, he is a god, and he'll teach you how to use Blender. He updates for the newest versions of Blender, so you can still have tutorials that are up to date because the UI and the tools do change with every big update to Blender. Scratchy leg. No one got scratchy leg.
I don't know. I just know people love him.
He makes really good and interesting videos, but they're really not tutorial kind of videos that you can follow along to build yourself. But they're like good, interesting videos. Like, oh, what if I try this? And then like, here's me failing it for 20 minutes, and then I finally get it to work, and then I can click like.
Yeah. I also like Danny. He's more on the comedy side of things, but you
Oh,
can
yeah,
probably
Danny's-
learn a lot.
Danny, you could learn a good bit from Danny.
Danny's kind of generic. Is that the name of a channel?
That's
Yeah,
it.
Just Danny.
Just Danny.
Just Danny.
Unity forum, yeah, Unity forums, huge. That's really big. Unity forums has saved me on multiple occasions. If you have a question for Unity, just like Google like what's your problem, and it'll probably be on the Unity forums. There.
Oh, sorry, guys, gotta mute that. My bad.
Sounds like it's like a baby delivery happening.
Unity Asset Store is really good. Don't be afraid to use it. There's some really good scripts, artwork, anything just on the Asset Store for free. For free, free ones and paid ones, but the free ones are pretty good. Stack Exchange, kind of like Unity forums, where you'll have a question and it'll just pop up on someone will have the same question pop up on the forum. And chances are, if you're using Unity, it'll probably be solved because a lot of people use Unity, a lot of questions get asked.
I want to make the point of like, if you're using one of these forums, you're probably thinking like, why would you list that up there? Because I'm just going to Google it and then Google's going to take me to the forum. But the truth is that actually searching inside of the forum, like if you use Unreal's forums, like built-in search, you will find more stuff than Google spat out if you just searched it in Google and looked at the first few links that will be the same Unreal forum links. You will find more content. So do not hesitate to use those search bars.
It's too little.
Yeah, it keeps like moving while
Oh,
I hate this.
MLG. It's the pick.
Picture.
Oh, I see.
There it is. Yep.
Oh, okay, here we go.
GDA admin. Here we go. This was our game jam. So yeah, the GDA admin, we had a Trello board for our game jam, and we started with like discussions of the character abilities on the top left. That's the and then environmental features and stuff. Like a lot of this was brainstorming, right? So you can see that a lot of this stuff was never added to the game. What was added to the game was literally just the rock character on the top left corner. This little god pod thing, the riddles. We ended up adding a lot of this. And we would check off these tasks as we went. So we kind of moved tasks that we were going to work on into the to-do list on the top right, and then move them like out of the to-do list. So we could kind of see who was working on what. That's especially important for a bigger team. This Trello board represents the work of 3 people working together. And that's 3 people that communicate really well. So a Trello at that point might not even be necessary, but we felt it helped us organize our thoughts. When it's 4 people, when it's 5 people, suddenly there's got to be a lot more communication about who's working on what when. You really want to minimize the amount of time that someone spends idly, not knowing what they're supposed to be doing or who's working on what. And that becomes even more important when you run into issues with source control. And it's like, oh, Tony moved the island on the level while I was building the village area of the level. And now I have to delete one of those because Unreal Engine preserves levels into binary files and can't resolve merge conflicts. You won't have that issue as much in Unity, or if you're using Unreal 5 because you're edgy and some sort of mad lad. Like that would be really impressive. But yeah, so yeah, that's I guess that's also the presentation, right? I mean, we're kind of done here. Thank you so much. Out of frame. Yeah.
Julie, you're so old.
Does anyone?
I know.
I mean, is there the end of the present? I don't mean to like.
What was question?
There was questions that
The big
okay.
questions.
We'll idle on there, and we can definitely answer that question regarding the
I think second to last.
second to last. We can definitely answer that question regarding the like physics loop. But yes. Where do you submit? So we have an itch.io page. That link here. Let me show you on our Discord. So, oh boy, great work, you guys. Hold on.
I could also stand up, then I'd log off, half the screen because the camera's right over me.
Yeah, I'll turn auto tracking back on.
We could just hold this whole presentation off.
Oh, it's not, it auto tracked to Nathan's head. Oh, it's zooming in on his butt. No. Hold on. All part of the plan. Yeah, that would be. There we go. Jeremy, you heading out? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Godspeed, Jeremy. You're right. So you see, okay, this right here, this channel, pinned jam info has everything you need. It says, number 1, find a team by Tuesday, February 22nd. 2, come up with a game idea by Thursday, February 24th, midnight. And it tells you, submit the team registration form there. Submit the game idea form there. And then finally, we have an itch.io page. And on here, we have our game jam going on right here. You can click this join jam button, join this, like do this right now. Itch.io has, I mean, it's just a copy of a lot of the content that you'll find in here. So yeah, that's got everything you need. Yes, yeah, William. So that answers that question. Itch.io will enforce the deadline. So that really takes a lot of pressure off of me or anyone else to say like, hey, we can't. You know, is itch.io has like voting built in, so the voting will take place on itch.io. So yeah, we unfortunately just kind of have to enforce that deadline. Do everything you can to be ready ahead of it. You know, it's just kind of a worst case scenario, you know, you drop it in our Discord. You're like, guys, I'm, you know, really sad I couldn't get it voted on. That doesn't, we won't stop people from playing it. We'll still play it. We'll probably hang out and talk afterwards. So yeah, so it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world if you don't submit on time, but please try to. Any other questions? What's your name? Josiah. I think nice to meet you.
For being at the study session last.
Oh, cool.
It was, yeah. So I decided to join the game jam a little bit later. So is it okay if I just submit the Google form as an individual with no other team part?
Absolutely. Do you want? Okay, so here's the thing. Our Google form is a bit flexible. It allows you. Well, do you want to work with a team?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing you should do is advertise yourself on our group hunt channel. Have you already done that?
Yes.
Okay. Did anyone respond? Have you
I
tried?
did it a couple hours ago, so-
Gotcha.
There's
Well,
another thing where like people's like, hey guys, I want to work in a group. And, like 4 people say, hey guys, let's work. Hey guys, I'm open to working in a group. But they don't like reach out to each other.
yeah,
Like, try
it's
to
very
form a group.
important. It's very important to take that next step and like if someone says I'm looking for teammates, like try to DM them. But assuming you've done that, of course you can participate in this jam as an individual. Our Google form has a it also has a thing that you can check and it's like, hey, I'm an individual that doesn't want to be an individual and wants to participate in this jam. And when you register as a team, you can check a box that says, if we're not full when the jam starts for like 4 out of 5 people, we wouldn't mind an extra.
Okay.
And then we will make an attempt to pair you, but we can't make any promises, of course. So please do everything you can to try to find a team by DMing people. I don't think anyone on GEA bites. We're all, like, yeah.
Not at the DMs at least.
No, yeah. Just reach out to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's quite a few some big teams forming already. 5 people in Milky Way, 5 people on Full Stack Studio. And so yeah, there's going to be some. This should be fun. Like there should be a lot of teams doing that.